You're listening to The Novel Game here at Avonside.studio.
Hello, and you're very welcome to The Novel Game. My name is Fenella Fudge, and I'll be your host. And I'm joined by three panellists who are going to compete against each other in this game of literary and not so literary fakery. Would you welcome, please, Novel Game old lag and former socialite Stuart Flynn. Robin, the mobile laundry service engineer, or as he's better known, Mr. Ince. Plucky newcomer, Francesca Reid. And sitting next to me and hopefully keeping score is our producer, Bruce Guthrie. He's the one who's done all the hard work. We're just here. Well, here then, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else clever enough to transcend gender are the available talent. So, what's happened is that Stuart, Robin and Francesca have all beavered away and have secretly sent me their homework. In each round, I'll read out their 3 fakes, as well as the author's first line. They'll score a point if they choose the right answer, but they'll also score a point every time they fool their fellows. And at the end of the game, they can redeem their points to bolster themselves against any feelings of nagging doubt or futility. We start with an actual first line, and you have to tell me from which book you think it's been taken. The first line is, "My suffering left me sad and gloomy." So is the book Kafka's Collected Pornography by Dr. James Hawes, 2008, The Life of Pi by Jan Martel, 2001, The Loved One by Evelyn Waugh, 1948, or Eeyore's Little Book of Gloom by A.A. Milne, 1999. The first line is, "My suffering left me sad and gloomy." Which book do you think? Stuart!
That's very sad. Wasn't sad start? It can only get better, can't it, really? I glazed over after the first line anyway, so I wasn't really entirely sure. I don't know. James Hawes sounds a bit like a made-up name, like Hawes Drawers. For the Kafka, for the collected pornography. I'm going to...
I like the way you're using some kind of limerick-based system to work it out. How would that limerick end? No, in a dirty way. I don't think that person can be real.
Pam Ayres taught me a lot. I don't really think it's the Eeyore book, because I saw a little bit more writing afterwards, and I don't remember Eeyore using words of more than 3 syllables. So I'm going to go for the food one, The Life of Pi.
That's number 2, Bruce. Robin, what's your thought?
Well, the James Hawes book would genuinely... Because that is a real author, and he wrote, I think, White Murk with Fins, and also he was the reason that... Because Franz Kafka really did have a collection of pornography. It's one of those great... Which is held by Oxford University. If you're a great enough 20th century author, your pornography is actually kept at Magdalen College, Oxford. And and I've seen some of it. It's very interesting. There's one of a 6-breasted woman feeding 3 fawns. So, but I don't think that it is that book. I actually don't think that book exists, though he did write a book about Kafka. I don't think it's the Eeyore book. What are the other ones? So it's Life of Pi.
Life of Pi by Jan Martel, Loved One by Evelyn Waugh, and Eeyore's Little Book of Gloom by
Right, I don't think
Milne.
it's Eeyore. I should know if it is Evelyn Waugh, and he was someone who's very gloomy, one of those people who actually chose to be a Catholic, which is a terrible... it's never going to bring happiness. I think it's going to... I think it is Evelyn Waugh's The Loved One.
So you've picked number 3. Francesca.
I'm still just hung up on the 6 breasts, 3 fawn scenario. Is it 2 nipples per fawn, or what was the...
Do you know, the trouble is I've only seen 1 page of it.
Right.
And it wasn't
the breast
actually...
would per 2 pages.
And it may well actually be a pop-up. So
No.
I think if you pull the tab, then you will find that there can be an enormous amount of fetishising.
Either way, it was a dear book, I'm sure.
I love echidnas, by the way, because they have milk patches, don't they? They sweat milk out on their skin. Every day's a school day, and you are welcome, everyone. So I think Kafka's Collected Pornography by Dr. James Hawes, just because I have often suffered through some particularly awful carnal experiences, and I think that might have been something I might have written in a diary post those experiences. maybe even done an illustration.
So you think the pornography book is a written book?
Pardon?
You don't think...
What, you think it's photos? Do you know what I think's really sad? Is that because we don't have as much printed pornography, you can't just find a builder's stash that they've thrown out of their white van window.
Do you go looking?
All the time. It's like
The
geotagging.
oak trees are empty now.
They
just
are.
tossed aside.
How do you like those double spreads?
Is that low dairy?
I'm not averse to a little bit of milk. No, just because double spread, how do you like those double spreads? That was a reference to The Wizard of Oz. How do you like those apples? Thank you, everyone, for following my thought process.
All that matters is which book she thought it was.
Yes.
And do you think it's Kafka's collected pornography?
I absolutely do. I feel very...
I can tell you.
If it does exist, this is going to be a very expensive game for me to play because I'm going to be ordering so much stuff. In fact, you know the saddest thing about the lack of printed pornography now is all of those men who joined book clubs, like the Sunday Times book club, just so they could buy it because they were too embarrassed to go to bookshops. And very often they would find that the book about sex actually was merely a textual book with no photography whatsoever. But they'd taken the 3 for £1 offer already and it was too late.
Isn't it sad that a man might actually have to use his imagination?
You couldn't get that sort of stuff from Reader's Digest, even in condensed.
We're back to milk again.
So you picked Kafka's collected pornography by Dr. James Hawes. That was Robin's concoction.
Oh, it's probably from his own
course it
collection.
Was it?
It was. That was your homework, Robin. You've already forgotten it.
I thought mine was Eeyore.
No, that was Stuart.
Oh, yeah.
wow.
Stuart was
Course it
Eeyore,
was,
and
yeah.
Stuart tried to misdirect us very well.
Did I?
You did.
I've played it before.
Evelyn Waugh, it wasn't either. It was Life of Pi by Jan Martel.
And everyone's read that. We must be the only
Everyone's
3
read that.
people. So have you
So
read
in
it?
terms
No,
of-
is that the one with the lion on a boat?
Tiger.
Tiger. Yes.
So
Lions
because
and
some of
tigers
you...
and
Can you
bears.
feel the love tonight? Well, you can in the first one, in the pornography book. can't you?
Well, one of you's picked the right book, one of you's picked the other, one of you's picked the other. So you've basically all ended up after the first round with a point each.
Oh.
On to the second round, which is modern literature. We have next Fresh Flesh. No, Stuart, it's a book. By Stella Duffy, published in 1999. The back of the book tells us this. 4 virtual strangers are unwittingly bound together by a dark secret, which is about to blow up in their faces. Fresh Flesh, the 4th thriller... I'll start that again.
You managed Fresh Flesh all right, but you couldn't do 4th thriller.
Neither could you.
Shut up.
Fresh Flesh, the 4th thriller to feature the witty, extravagant Saz Martin, is a frightening journey through the emotional ruins of the past, a tale of the sins of the fathers and the mothers, and the greatest theft of all. A case unlike any that Saz has worked on before, which menacingly reaches into the heart of her own life. She was no chef. She had her fingers in many pies, but she was no chef. She didn't dare tread even Lightfoot into that territory, but she did know how to knock up a mean, foolproof hangover cure breakfast. Something with ibuprofen pills as the main carbohydrate. Second one. Smash! Another glass whizzed past the barback's head as Matthew Godwin completed his obligatory pre-event workout of whiskey, uppers, and breaking anything to hand. 3. Sarah was screaming. 4. Watching the blood-sullied water going down the plug hole, her tongue ran over her gums and her mind went over the previous night's debauchery. Robin.
Oh, see, I always feel that the very short one, the Sarah screamed, seems to... What was it? Was it Sarah screamed?
Sarah was screaming.
Sarah was screaming. The chef one, I don't know why there's... So we've got the chef one, the ibuprofen. That's a very long first line. And I think Stella Duffy would have better punctuation than that. She was no chef, she had her fingers in many... I think I'm going to go with Sarah or Sarah was screaming. No,
Okay.
I'm not. No, you're right. There's... I'm chef. Yeah, let's go with chef.
OK, you've gone for chef.
Oh, right.
Francesca, thoughts?
I don't know. I don't want to read this book. I'm just going to put it out there. Sorry, Stella. And at first, I thought it was Caroline Duffy who wrote the poem about an onion and sniffing your fingers. And at GCSE level, that was my first experience of lesbian poetry. Hurrah! But it's now a very strong memory for me. But it's not the same person anyway, so it's an irrelevant comment. Much like most of the things I'm going to say. You might offer some value to the evening, and I'm just going to show my addled brain via my mouth. But
What if it had been Patrick Duffy who played the man from Atlantis who was in Dallas?
Yes.
that would have been much better,
And
ideally.
he was in Dallas, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yes, he did more
Did
than
you just
one
repeat
job.
what Robin
Did he say that? Yeah,
I'm sat next to his wrong ear.
Do
It's a
try.
disaster
Do
with
try.
this.
Robin,
Atlantis.
wasn't he in Dallas? Anyway, thrice repeated, like many of my worst mistakes. I don't know.
It's kind of a Candyman situation now, isn't it? If you say Patrick Duffy enough times, he'll appear before you.
In a loincloth.
If you say Patrick Duffy enough times, he'll appear before you. Did he?
Yeah. I don't know. There's the bloods. Who's feeling their oats when they've got a bit of gum disease or gingivitis? Clearly, if you're brushing your teeth and there's blood coming out, and she's feeling her oats, thinking about this incredible night she's had, but she's looking at her blood-stained tooth water. Maybe that is true. But I do feel like the first line, sorry to copy you, it feels like it might go with that book.
Understood.
Thank you.
Stuart?
Could I get a large Sauvignon Blanc?
You've got a total blanc.
I'm just... Oats. What were you saying about oats?
Feeling her oats.
Filling or feeling?
Feeling.
Feeling. Do people feel oats?
They don't shove their hand in a bag of porridge, but it's a saying,
Well,
isn't
it might be a thing. I'm going to have a number 2 again. It's the nerves.
Well, now you've finally settled, I shall tell you that the first line of Stella Duffy's Fresh Flesh was... Sarah was screaming.
Oh, I knew I should have gone there.
So, she was no chef. She had her finger in many pies. Stuart did that.
Oh, all the live long day, it had you written all over it now.
Smash, another glass whizzed past the barback's head. That's Francesca.
Oh, that's what I chose.
So, in terms of points, Stuart now has 3 points. Robin still has just the 1 point because you steered off Sarah. And Francesca has 2 points.
So that means I'm in the lead.
Stuart, despite his nonsensical ramblings, is in the lead. So we come to the adverts round, and this week it's the turn of that possibly missed but definitely defunct stalwart of the high street, Dixon's. Not a murmur.
Rumbelows, though.
Rumbelows.
Rumbelows. There's something...
Can we have an R for Rumbelows?
Grace Brothers. Oh, I miss Grace
Steady on.
Brothers.
Let's. We're literally not fictional in that way. Founded in 1937, the name Dixon's was selected randomly from the telephone directory, apparently, as it was sufficiently short to fit above the small shop front. So what was their advertising slogan in the run-up to their demise in 2014? Have you got any ideas? Don't shout it out. For God's sake, don't give it away. Here are 4 efforts. 1 of them is true. 3 are from the twisted minds of the panellists. Dixon's, the last place you want to go. Dixon's, for all your discotheque and rap needs. Clear your browsing history, but don't forget about us. Dixon's, our prices aren't shocking. One of those is real. Francesca, which one?
So I've had a little look. The last place you want to go. Kind of self-deprecating irony. I can understand that something of the British High Street might engage in such a thing. For all your discotheque and rap needs, perhaps in their hour of need, they decided that, like many pop stars, that cultural appropriation was the way to go. I say no. No, thank you, Dixon's. I'm glad everyone else agrees.
Right on, sister.
Woke AF. It's not a frequency, it's just my state of being. Clear your browsing history, but don't forget about us. I don't know. It doesn't even mention the name. Doesn't even mention the brand in it, does it? And Dixon's, our prices aren't shocking. I think I'm probably going to go for the latter, the last one, number 4.
Number 4.
Because it feels like the most sensible.
Moving on, Stuart.
Oh, thank you. Interesting. I don't really know. I mean, the Dixons... When I sort of think about Dixons, I always think about the Roman numerals as well, and that's something like, what is it, 509? Is it 509? 509.
What?
Yeah, DIX is 509, but I don't know what ONS would be.
Oh, I see.
So
That's what you're
Dixon's is
doing.
your I Claudius.
I think it's your Claudius. I'm not passing it back, but, well, I am. I don't think it's that, or I don't think it's the clear... Oh, it should be the clear your browsing history. The rap needs. I don't think it's rap needs. Who has needs in rap? No, it's got to be number 3. I'm going to break tradition.
OK, we'll
I'm
go
going
with
for
that.
3.
That sounds very firm of you, Stuart. Robin.
4. I'm going to go with Dixon's Our Prices Aren't Shocking.
Which
I'm
is-
not going to shilly-shally around with this one.
I'm impressed. It really isn't a slogan, though, is it? Anybody know which one it was? 4. So you're all going for 4. It was, in fact, 1. Dixon's, the last place you want to go. It can be a positive phrase as well as a negative phrase. And
The
they're no longer with
startling
us. I
thing is
wonder
to know
why.
they were still there in 2009.
I know.
Well, they twinned, didn't they, with a toilet in France?
Yeah.
So we have, after round 3, Robin, you're still on 1. Come along. Stuart leaping ahead with 5, and Francesca, you still have 3. And so we come to round 4, the celeb biog. To the biography round and Charles Moore's authorised biography of Margaret Thatcher. Volume 1, it's not for turning, it's called. The back of the book says this: Margaret Thatcher is the towering figure of late 20th century British politics. No other Prime Minister of modern times has sought to change Britain and its place in the world as radically as she did. This is the story of her remarkable life in her own words. The definitive account of an extraordinary politician, published in a single volume for the first time. Are you bored yet? She writes candidly about the formation of her character and values and the experiences that propelled her to the very top in a man's world, beginning with a touching account of her upbringing in Grantham, Lincolnshire. She goes on to describe her Oxford years, marriage to Dennis, and entry to Parliament at a time when there were no more than a handful of women MPs. So 1. The day had not yet dawned, but the unmistakable clip-clop of the blacksmith's horse, determined step, woke her with its rhythmic stride.
Oh, Mills and Booms, Margaret Thatcher.
2. Growing up above a grocer's store, you soon realise that rarely does anyone just get what they go out for. Not merely in general stores, but in general life. 3. The mass privatisation of the 1980s would be described by some wags as the sale of the century, and it is a coincidence of minor interest that Margaret Thatcher, who would lead this charge of capitalism, was delivered by a certain Dr. Mackenzie Parsons, father of quiz show host Nicholas Parsons. 4. My first distinct memory is of traffic. Stuart.
I love the beginning with a touching account, but I don't really see any of them as recalling an account of anyone being touched. I wasn't touched by any of those. The last one's very to the point, isn't it? Which is unlike me, and I won't be. I shan't be. The first one, frankly, is just hoarsely kind of like graphic. It's just too graphic. It's almost sensual. Just me? No?
Yes,
Fine.
just you, Stuart. So,
all right. Well, the third one's a
one.
bit wordy and goes on a bit. I'm going to go for, not the grocery store, but number 4.
Number 4,
Which
my
rhymes.
first distinct memory is of traffic.
Yes.
Understood. Robin.
Well, yeah, I agree. The clip-clop. There's something I don't. He is a whether you like his work or not, he's a kind of proper writer, Charles Moore. So I can't imagine you go. I'll probably open with clip-clops. Growing up in a grocery store. No, I don't think that. I do know that it is true that Nicholas Parsons, because if you've ever seen a documentary with Nicholas Parsons, he will normally mention the fact that, yes, his dad did deliver Margaret Thatcher. And whereas my great-uncle delivered Charlotte Rampling, which I think she did a lot more good work in the 70s and 80s. My first distinct memory of traffic is odd, because my first distinct, but it's a biography, not an autobiography. So oh God, do you know what? My first distinct memory is traffic. Let's go with that. Let's go with number 4.
Number 4 for Robin. Will he score his first point? We'll wait and see.
Second point. I have one already. Thank you very
I'm
much.
sorry,
I
you're
wish
absolutely
Bruce would
right.
stop taking that one away. It's all I'm ever going to bloody get.
Robin's a bit fractious tonight. I'm sorry, everyone.
Sheila Hancock was once very cruel to me on Just a Minute. She was so cruel and difficult, in fact, that when I went to play Cockermouth, someone afterwards gave me a cake they'd made especially for me with a picture of Sheila Hancock iced on top of it, boss-eyed. That's how much the listeners picked up on that. Now, that's a proper cake. That's better than a cricket cake, that one.
Was it bitter and sour?
Well, my wife said, what if it's poison? I said, someone who's gone to that much effort, it was an absolutely delightful cake. To have a cake of revenge made by a Radio 4 listener was...
the irony of it being sweet, though. Yeah.
Francesca, tell us which one you'd pick.
Well, first of all, can I just say I love Chicklet, so this was a real page-turner. And I think number 3, the mass privatisation, is probably a bit too obvious. It feels as if it's screaming for me to choose it. I'm going to go for number 2.
Growing up above a grocer's store.
Yeah.
Right. I shall now reveal that the correct answer is number 4. My first distinct memory is of traffic. So Francesca was responsible for the clip-cloppy one.
Oh, you know, Esther Ransom started her career doing the clip clop. She actually was in charge of the coconut shells. That's how she started her career.
In Foley
And
making.
she ended it with childline. What?
Making Foley. Not Axel, but Foley, sound for films and television.
No.
The Foley person is the person who makes all the... I don't know why it's called Foley. Maybe someone... Anybody know why it's called Foley?
Because they're like foals, maybe.
Somebody said yes.
Foley. It must
Somebody
be.
said yes.
Yeah, it's James Foley, who's the first guy to ever do it for film.
Oh.
So James Foley was the first Foley operator. Fantastic,
Someone's not
thank you.
coconut shy.
Cool.
Yeah, very nice.
You're welcome that I mentioned Foley, that you could show off your distinct knowledge base.
So Stuart did the one about the general stores and fooled Francesca. Mass privatisation, of course, was Robin. And now the Stuart's still romping away with 7 points as his score at the moment. Robin, as we know, has 2 and Francesca still has 3. Round 5, which Bruce has kindly called Modern Tosh. So I will read you a bit about the book. Hetty Clarkson is a typical modern woman, attractive, romantic and single. Her situation is the same as that of thousands of 20 and 30-somethings arriving in London each year, with one small exception. She is old enough to be their mother. It wasn't meant to be like this, but blame that on her philandering husband. When she caught him cheating with a younger woman, Hetty's traditional views of marriage hit the buffers. One divorce later, and Hetty is discovering that the etiquette books for the midlife single woman haven't been written yet. In turns sexy and poignant, Chasing Men lifts the lid on how Hetty copes and finds contentment in an age when midlife singles are the fastest growing group in society. Edwina Currie has delivered a terrific and timely new novel. Scotland on Sunday described it as a merry romp. So what have you lot come up with? Well, 1. Hetty pulled her collar closer. 2. The feel of silk is duplicitous, he thought as he ran his hands along the seam that would lead to forbidden pleasure. Hetty wearily winced open her heavy lids to be greeted by shafts of light dancing through some unfamiliar and unfashionable Venetian blinds. And number 4. There were days when I just absolutely longed for a cup of tea and a digestive, but they weren't that often. Mostly I'd have the washing machine refreshing my bed linen from the night or afternoon before, when the Lynx effect had all too quickly faded, and naught but a more authentic
Oh, God.
I know what it says, I just couldn't say it. And naught but a more authentic pheromonal scent of Africa remained. Robin, could I bear to do the whole thing again? No?
The thing is, you'll now find you'll use the word pheromonal over and over again. It's the same. I had to say neurofibromatosis once. It took 12 takes. And ever since then, I thought every single day I'm going to find a way of somehow bringing neurofibromatosis into a conversation. It certainly is.
It's actually my safe word, Robin.
It works, doesn't it? Pull the Hessian sack off.
It does. I'm not Guy Fawkes anymore.
Robin.
I think, again, I'm going to follow the rules of the shortest sentence, because what, of course, you discover is we all show off quite a lot. So we like to write long bits. The feel of silk, that sounds like, because I know that Edwina Currie likes to write saucy novels, and she, still those memories of the affair she had with John Major bring back nightmare. I know it's a really weird... There are visions that are not required, aren't there? Hetty wearily winced open a heavy link. I don't know. I think unfashionable Venetian blinds. I think that might be this kind of thing, Stuart. Yeah, I can see you. You're not keen on Venetian blinds, and I think you've used that opportunity to damn them.
He loves the sash window, though.
Yes, you're somebody...
Stuart loves a window treatment. You're so wrong.
You're all in a ruche to expose
He loves
me.
swags and tails as well. He's very much
Housemaid's knickers in every window.
Twitching, all of one of them. Everyone is a twitcher.
The whole street had pampas grass growing in
Come
the
along, Robin. Pick something.
So I'm going to go with number 1. Hetty pulled her collar closer.
Francesca.
Well, it seemed that when Stuart copied Robin earlier, it was a fortuitous move, and he won a point. So that's in my back pocket.
I did not copy him. I just came second.
You literally were like, I'm going to
gentleman.
copy him. Look at me copy him.
That was my face.
That was
but
your
it wasn't
body
my words.
language.
Was it? In my body language, yes.
It was.
Well, don't listen to my body.
You wafted your pampas grass at me, and I thought, he wants to swing, and he's telling me he's going to copy. The feel of silk is from a man's perspective, and it's her novel, right? So, no. And number four is bold in bold text. So I'm thinking, is it a double bluff? Has Bruce perhaps maybe made a mistake and emboldened 4 because in fact it is the answer?
It's not in bold.
It is. It's larger than the other 4s.
No.
Oh yes,
No, I
it
think
is.
It's just your copy.
Don't gaslight me. Look at it on Robin's as well.
No, not on
None of us
mine.
can see that, Francesca.
It was around this time when the bats suddenly came into view as they crossed the desert.
So number 4, there were days where I absolutely longed for a cup of tea and a digestive. The lynx affected Is Edwina Curry even familiar with the smell of lynx?
Oh, yeah.
What?
She's covered in the stuff.
She's had a go on her plumber, has she?
Oh, yes.
It was John Major's favourite.
When I think of him, I think of a bowl of grey porridge.
That smells of lynx.
Lynx.
With a roll-on.
I think he bought a job lot of blue Stratos in 1982, and he's still... So he's either that, or he thinks Insignia's got everything, shampoo and shower gel. And so it gives him a certain kind of... It gives him one moment, I suppose, of certainty in his life.
I don't know.
He's actually a Kouros. Oh, did you say Kouros? Were you going Kouros? Yeah, I'm with you on the Kouros.
talcum powder.
Oh, nice.
Unfortunately, that's not what we're being asked.
Oh, okay, sorry. But I'm going to go for 1 and copy Robin because he knows things.
Stuart.
I'll have what she's having.
Thank you, Stuart. That was extraordinarily and unnaturally speedy for you. So the answer is indeed number 1. Hetty pulled her collar closer. I think Francesca's made it perfectly clear she was about the Venetian blinds. The Field of Silk was Robin, as you said, written by a man. Very good. And Stuart went on and on about lynx and Africa and all God knows what. Right. Romping away still is Stuart with 8. Robin's gone up to 3, but he's still trailing behind Francesca with 4. Round 6, classic stuff. Heathcliff, it's me, I'm Cathy, I've come home. Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights from 1847. Wuthering Heights is the tale of 2 families, both joined and riven by love and hate. Cathy is a beautiful and willful young woman, torn between her soft-hearted husband and Heathcliff, the fierce and resentful man who has loved her since childhood. The power of their bond creates a maelstrom of cruelty and violence, which will leave one of them dead and cast a shadow over their children. If you haven't read it, I'm sorry, we've given away the plot. Emily Bronte is a stunningly original and shocking exploration of obsessive passion. 1. It is one thing to have known no parents, but quite another to have known no parentage. 2. Despite the obscuring storm clouds, the cock still crowed for the dawn. 3. A deluge threatened to drown him as the wind wilfully whipped at his woolen tunic. But he could spy smoke rising from a chimney stack in the distance. 4. I have just returned from a visit to my landlord, the solitary neighbour that I shall be troubled with. Francesca.
1 smells of Robin. Is well constructed, beautiful, artful. 2 mentions cock, so it's definitely Stuart. Sorry. And number 3, again, great eyes that you saw smoke from such a distance. I'm going to go for number 4 because it has the smell of a classic literary novel about it.
Ooh, you're very definite. Stuart.
Oh, I'm not going for that. I am going to... and I'm not going for the alliteration of the wind willfully whipping. I mean, woolen nonsense. I'm going to go for the cock.
Oh, Stuart. Robin. Bring us round again.
I agree with Stuart in terms of the deluge and the willfully whipped is kind of like, you might as well say, he was a ragged rascal who ran around those rocks. So do you know what? The terrible thing this round's doing is bringing back to me one of my favourite musicals of all time, which was when Cliff Richard, then only in his early 60s, decided that he would be perfect as Heathcliff and did, well, my name's a little bit like Heathcliff, isn't it? It's Cliff, and did the musical Heathcliff, which my mother-in-law saw, and having been a Cliff Richard fan for 35 years, that stopped her, and we never knew what to get her for Christmas because we always got the Cliff Richard calendar for her. She went, I don't want that. I saw that, and I saw him doing all those... It was terrible.
Which is so disturbing because the way he's posed near that dolphin's blowhole is very worrying.
Is that the same film?
No, it's the calendar.
Oh.
He also plays basketball.
Yeah, don't you remember that? It's the sequel to Summer Holiday, My Dolphin's Blowhole. It's very good. Melvin Hayes played the dolphin. It was awfully good. I'm going to go also with, I think I've just returned from a visit from, oh man, I don't know. Yeah, I think number 4. I'm going to go with, yeah.
So the correct answer is, I have just returned from a visit to my landlord. That gives 2 of you a point, and Stuart, choosing the cock. finds himself
Well, who
is
wrote
one.
the cock one then? Who
Robin
taunted-
did.
Robin teased
I
me
know,
with
he
cock.
did. He's
Well,
a cock
that's not
teaser.
fair.
Show business.
Yep. Misdirection. Round 7, film poster round. It's 1960. You're Janet Leigh, you're wet and covered with tomato ketchup.
You might be.
What was the tagline for the original version of Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho? Was it 1, having reservations about your reservation? 2, we all go a little mad sometimes. 3, never again will you want to shower alone. 4, Mr. Hitchcock hopes you'll have a comfortable stay in the Bates Motel. Stuart.
You are right, there are bold 4s on here. The fours are
Thank
bold.
you, I
but it's
feel
not
vindicated.
No, it's only the number 4. You didn't specify, you see.
Oh, yeah.
Not the text. We're all looking at text.
Pedantry
We
of the
don't
highest
look at
order, Stuart.
We're not looking at the numbers. Good Lord. Going a little mad sometimes, but no, I'm not going to. I'm going to go for number 4.
Mr. Hitchcock hopes you'll have a comfortable stay. Okay.
In the Bates Motel. Is that the Bates Motel? Is that
Bates
the actual
Motel.
hotel?
The flashing sign. Yeah.
Of Master Bates welcomes you.
Robin, ignore Stuart and carry on.
The having reservations about your reservation, I think, sounds too contemporary. I think that's the kind of joke thing. I think Never Again Will You Want to Shower Alone would have given away the fact that that was a huge turning point because no one expected Janet Leigh to die. So Mr. Hitchcock, I'm kind of thinking about because he was such a major, have his name all over the films and he was a character himself. But I think it's going to be We All Go a Little Mad Sometimes. So I'm going to go with number 2.
Number 2 for Robin. Francesca, where are you going?
I don't know. Having a look at the lines, number 3, the issue was that she was not alone. Someone was in there with a massive knife. So that was kind of the issue, wasn't it? So
Now who's being picky?
So you think the tag should have been, you'll never want to shower with a man with a knife again?
you'll want all of your friends and family there, but just not a murderous psychopath with a massive cleaver.
No, are you in charge of the Odeon? I feel it was a very misrepresentative tagline, actually.
Call Ofcom. I reckon number 4, I've been led by the bold text again. Mr. Hitchcock hopes he'll have a comfortable stay in the Bates Motel. All the other ones are
Francesca,
great, though.
you've just picked Robin's line.
Oh, Robin.
The showering alone that's so controversial, that was Stuart's line. Having reservations about your reservation, Francesca. And the correct answer was...
That's my second choice.
We
That
all,
doesn't count.
we all go a little mad sometimes. Interestingly,
Heavens to
the
Betsy.
tagline to Gus Van Zant's remake of Psycho was the classic story about a boy and his mother.
No.
And the score, Stuart, look
Showered
at you
with
with
praise.
8. But look who's caught up with you. Robin has also got 8. And Francesca is still on 5. How
Not
did Robin
acceptable.
suddenly get to 8? Well played, good people.
I feel like a pool shark in The Hustler. He was on 1 for so long.
I hope these points are going on my club card.
On your licence, babe.
Stunning play. Round 8 is the non-fiction round. Remember, people, the clues in the title. Non-fiction. And here comes a witty, argumentative book bursting with good things. Well, that's what the Sunday Times said. It's The English by Jeremy Paxman. The back of the book has this. Who or what are the English? Why do the English actually enjoy feeling persecuted? What is behind the English obsession with games? How did they acquire their odd attitudes to sex and food? Where did they get their extraordinary capacity for hypocrisy? 1. Mussolini said the British would rather have breakfast than joy, while Charles de Gaulle wrote that an Englishman preferred warm socks to a hot embrace. Has any nation had so many national characteristics so celebrated and so demeaned? 2. Consider the inevitable "no, you go first" battle, a quintessential rite of passage for each and every English person, and one that defines a lifetime of begrudging politeness and self-flagellation. 3. And did those feet in ancient times walk upon England's mountains green? Well, that at least is really very unlikely. 4. Being English used to be so easy. Robin.
Right, well, as a fan of Julian Cope, I don't think it's number 3. I also don't think No, You Go First. That doesn't sound right to me for Jeremy Paxman. The bit of starting off with historical knowledge and quoting is there. That's kind of showing off his knowledge, so could be... But I'm going to go again, I think, with the briefest one. I think I'm going to go with number 4, Being English Used to Be So Easy.
So, Francesca, where are you going to go?
All over the shop. I've had a look at all of them, and I think there's merits to each. But I actually sold Jeremy Paxman some tickets when I worked in a festival theatre box office. He was a very prickly customer, and actual truth. Very rude to me. Anyway, I'll take that with you another time, Jezza. I reckon, personally, I'm going to go for being English used to be so easy, and didn't it just? Is he referring to the Empire? Is that what we're asking?
Very good. Stuart.
My second choice was going to be the Mussolini, but I didn't like the Mussolini one because of the warm socks, you see. I felt that let it down. I don't think that Jeremy Paxman knows about warm socks. I don't think he's ever experienced warm socks or, come to that, a hot embrace. And I don't believe that he does enough research to warrant him knowing about those things. It's either 3 or 4, so I'm going to go for 4 because I can imagine him sighing, exasperated.
That's all of you zooming in on 4. Bruce is trying to keep up with the scores, and Stuart and Robin are still tied, and they're on 9 each. Francesca's bringing up the rear with 6. 4 was the correct answer, if I didn't mention that. Round 9. It's the penultimate round. Time for Planet of the Apes by Pierre Boulle from 1963. The back of the book has this. In a spaceship that can travel at the speed of light, Ulysses...
He can't. That's Brian Cox is going to be furious. That breaks all the bloody laws of physics.
Oh, Lord.
Man.
I think we...
It's
Is Robin's minder in the room? I think we may have to take him out.
It can't go that fast.
Oh, dear.
The fiction's causing friction.
This is not a textbook, Robin. It's Planet of the Apes. Calm
This is not
down.
a textbook, Robin.
In a spaceship that can travel at the speed of light, Ulysses, a journalist, sets off from Earth for the nearest solar system. He finds a planet which resembles his own, but on Soror, humans behave like animals and are hunted by a civilized race of primates. Captured and sent to a research facility, Ulysses must convince the apes of their mutual origins, but such revelations have always been greeted by prejudice and fear. 1. I tossed to one side my copy of The Sun, thinking only that there must surely be a better sun somewhere. And once more, without pause, took my telescope in search of Uranus. 2. The stars shone with beauty and indifference as they hurtled forward, unhampered by gravity. 3. Jin and Phyllis were spending a wonderful holiday in space, as far away as possible from the inhabited stars. 4. The deck was filling with smoke and dust. The astronauts stumbled terrified towards the light, hoping they could survive in this planet's atmosphere. Francesca.
It's a difficult one. Again, every time I hear the word primates, I remember an ex of mine. He took a class of his to, what's her name? Diane... Abbott, yes. Diane Abbott was doing a talk on primates.
Diane Fossey?
Diane Fossey, yeah. He took the kids to a talk of hers, and the kid got up, was like 8 years old, and said, "Can I ask you a question about the monkeys?" And she was like, "They're primates," and stormed off.
I thought it was going to be one where I was shouting, neurofibromatosis, take your hands off me, you dirty ape. But he wouldn't.
He wouldn't, because he was in fact Diane Fossey with a mask on.
Was that the one who did the choreography for Cabaret?
Yes, absolutely. Did that whole egg in the hand manoeuvre. So I think I'm going to go for the stars shone with beauty and indifference as they hurtled forward unhampered by gravity, much like my breasts.
Very good. Stuart.
Lovely.
They are, thank you.
Can you move them out of my face now?
Okay,
And I
sorry.
can see the paper clear. Thank you. I don't think astronauts stumble. So that's obviously not number 4. And the stars shone with... Where's Marky Mark in all of this? Isn't he one of those? Yes. I can't imagine him saying any of these lines, and yet he's surely in this.
He wasn't in the original book, though, was he?
Well, we don't know. Do we? What
That's
year was
like
it?
there's a series of books
he
called
wasn't.
Roger Moore and the Crime Fighters, in which Roger Moore just appears in the end as if they couldn't even afford him. But I don't know if anyone read them when they were kids, and it's about kids having adventures, and always at the end they go, and then Roger Moore turned up and said, "Well done, kids." Brilliant.
2 thumbs.
I think for number 3 it would be Lorraine Bowen doing the soundtrack, because I love that idea of Jin and Phyllis spending a wonderful holiday in space. That sounds super, but it's not that, and well, maybe it is number 2 then. I'm going for number 2, but it's a good tradition of mine in this game, so I'm going to stick with what I know best.
Copying other people.
Right.
Very good, Stuart. Come on, Robin.
Well, we know number
Sort
1
it
was
out.
Stuart. It has to be Stuart. It has to be. It is Stuart, isn't it? Yeah.
It was you last time, the cock reference.
Shoving your cock in on that round.
I don't think... the Gin and Phyllis having a wonderful holiday in space, that doesn't seem to fit into the rest of the plot. And then they noticed a spaceship going past. I wonder who's on there. Who was on there with 3 space explorers? Hang on a minute. That's so... But I think even though I agree that I don't like thinking of astronauts stumbling...
No.
It's like, I can't remember which Apollo mission. One of the astronauts had...
Slingbacks.
No, he had had diarrhea and they had to float around picking up the bits of it. That's, never saw that in Apollo 13, do you?
Dear,
I think I'm going to go with number 4.
Right, well, we have a change in the leadership due to this round.
Oh my goodness.
I will keep you in suspense for a moment because I will tell you that the stars shone with beauty and indifference is not the right answer.
No.
Robin wrote that and has therefore gained 2 points from the other panellists.
Oh, Robin, you beast.
The correct answer, Gin and Phyllis were spending a wonderful holiday in space. It's a good one, isn't it? Final round.
Thank you for saving me time. I'm now never going to have to read that book. That is... Oh, my God.
Finally, we reach the last round of this edition of the novel game and Madame Doubtfire by Anne Fine from 1987. A vast apparition towered over her on the doorstep. It wore a loose salmon pink coat and tucked under its arm was an enormous imitation crocodile skin handbag. I'm Madame Doubtfire, dear. Lydia, Christopher and Natalie Hilliard are used to domestic turmoil and have been torn between their warring parents ever since the divorce. But all that changes when their mother takes on a most unusual cleaning lady. So how did Anne Fine finish off this story is this question. What is the last line, do you think? So number 1, his youngest child just squeezed his hand. 2, we can all rest assured that there comes a time when our bodies sag so very much that they no longer know an obvious gender. 3,
By the way, Dad,
said Lucy,
I know I should have mentioned it sooner, but you really should wear a lighter lipstick.
4, they all laughed as they walked down the street, kicking the leaves. They were loved, and that was all that mattered. Stuart!
Just getting over the regurgitation there from the last one, which is not the answer. And the youngest child squeezing his hand, I bet it was tight, and I bet the child squeezed with nails.
Oh, you're so vicious, Stuart.
A lighter lipstick, is that one of those lipsticks that comes with a flip top that lights cigarettes?
I think it means paler.
Oh, I see.
But I could be wrong.
I think they should have specified, frankly, so I'm not going for that. So I'm going to go for the squeezy handy.
Squeezy handy, number 1. Robin?
I don't think it's body sagging. They all kicking the leaves. No, I think she's... I'm going to go with squeezing the hand as well. I think that's it, yeah.
2 for number 1. Francesca, what are you going to go for?
Well, I mean, if the film is anything to go by, I always like to watch the film and then read the book. I reckon it will be a nice, funny little line about the lipstick.
OK. Well, the answer is... his youngest child just squeezed his hand.
I quit the game.
And the lighter lipstick was the work of Robin.
Oh.
I'm so relieved because I didn't know the names of the children. I thought you were going to say, well, there isn't a child called Lucy. Thank heavens you didn't listen properly. I was relying on that.
Oh, thank you for calling out my stupidity.
Well, to steady yourselves, you may have to ask the person sitting next to you to just squeeze your hand, because we've reached the end of this edition of the novel game, as well as the end of the series. And it's with the stark and arresting realisation that the final scores read thus. Ringing up the rear, Francesca with 7 points. Then with 10 points, it's Stuart. Which leads you to the unlikely realisation that starting with no points for 2 rounds, the winner is Robin Ince. 13 points. So please join me in thanking Francesca Reid, Stuart Flynn and Robin Ince for the laughs. Our producer, Bruce Guthrie, for keeping score. And to Ben Noble, Craig White and Lewis Dolan for making this audible. My name is is Fenella Fudge, and my suggestion is that you make it your business to lobby your MP for another series of The Novel Game.
To hear more episodes of The Novel Game, like and subscribe, people. Like and subscribe at avonside.studio. Oh, and while you're here, why don't you listen to this?
At the end of the first ever episode of The Novel Game.
Thank you.
Yes.
The first loser is Stuart on 4 points.
Well done. Thank you.
You lost best.
Yeah.
In second and third place are both Joey and Marianne on 6 points apiece.
Well
And
done.
James, remarkably well, 9 points.
He was kissing in cobbles ahead.
Wasn't he?
Oh, it's so
Laughing
proud.
gaily.
Okay. Next, we have Dubliners, which was published in 1914, written by James Joyce.
I was really liking number 4 as well, but I'm not sure the third stroke is grammatically correct, because presumably it would be his third strike, unless he's getting a hand job. So for that reason...
When this happens, it's 6:30, you're at home, you're chopping vegetables.
And so you have to apologise for saying that on
No,
the BBC.
you don't say it in the first place.
Maybe you could tone it down and say he was being manually pleasured.
The good people of this country want to chop vegetables without having their ears assaulted.
I'm
Thank you
terribly
very
Okay,
much.
right, okay, I'll refer this.
Put them off their stroke.
I don't think it's grammatically correct unless he's receiving a massage. So, for that reason, I'm going to go for the men singing. Number 2. Number 2.
So the actual first line of Dubliners is, "There was no hope for him this time, it was the third stroke." I see people nodding.
Is he having a massage?
Sex and the City blazes a glorious drunken cocktail through New York as Candace Bushnell, gossip columnist par excellence, trips on her Manolo Blahnik kitten heels from the baby doll lounger to the Bowery bar.
I feel this will save time later. It's actually Candice.
Is it?
Yes. Save us a re-recording.
Okay. I've say all that again?
Yes, I'm afraid so.
Okay. So, round 2 is Candace Bushnell, Sex and the City. Candice.
Candice.
Oh, like Candice Bergen. Oh, Candice Bergen, right. And my question this week, potatoes, roast or mashed, Stuart?
Saute.
Roast or mashed?
I would like them roasted. Do you know, actually, I like them when they're mashed after having been roasted. Now,
You
that
lie.
is a really quality mash.
That's not possible.
Or you go home and try it.
Okay.
Not now, wait, later. Hold on. Hold your...
Pitter-patter of tiny feet.
And then you follow.
Lewis.
Oh, you've so sexy.
Roast or mashed?
Since you haven't given me the option of dauphinoise, I'll have roast with the skins on.
Roast with the skins on, thank you. Heather, roast or mashed?
Roast every time.
Every single time?
Every single time, except this Christmas I had a tragedy because I went to my in-laws for Christmas dinner and I'm a vegetarian and the only roast potato options were goose fat roast potatoes, which I understand are very delicious if you eat goose fat, but I don't. So I've actually had a Christmas without roast potatoes this year.
Oh, I got you again.
And even in July, that seems to have stuck with you.
Yeah, well, it was really deeply traumatic, as I'm sure you can all imagine. Imagine Christmas without roast potatoes.
But it is,
Or even Jesus.
it's a clear sign that your in-laws don't like you. Well, I'm sorry, I'm vegetarian. When you go to an in-laws and they don't provide for the vegetarian, it's a clear message.
But that would also mean that
they might be suggesting that you might need to lose a few.
That's...
Right, 5 months to prepare for that then. Where does that leave us?
I need to make my decision about roast or mash.
Yes, you do.
I think mash. I know it's controversial.
With a little bit of horseradish.
No, horseradish on the side. But I think mash, you can't beat mash if you're ill.
Oh.
Are you ill?
No.
Well, you probably can't beat mash. You haven't got the energy.
Well, that's it.
Lewis, put us out of my misery.
Well,
Do you want the contestants with 2 or the one contestant with 14?
Tell me the contestant who's got 14 of your British points.
It isn't Joey, Stuart, or Marion. It's James!
Yay! I feel a little like I've been wiping the floor with my face.
You may feel like that, but you don't look like it.
I feel like I've been wiped the floor by James.
Sorry.
But no, all very good. It's all good, clean
now.
fun.
Isn't it nice it's all clean now?
Yes.
Were there any other scores that wanted talking about?
No.
Okay.
Well, my number 2 might not be. Let's just leave it there.
Well, it's good that you managed to catch up, darling.
I did, yes. What did you get?
We all got number 2. We all got 2s.
Oh, did we?
Yeah, so we all came
Oh,
second.
that makes me feel much
We all
better.
came second, except for James, who came first, which is not polite to come first, is it?
No.
I'm looking at you all, and I'm loving what you've done. And I've run out of words. I'm actually without words. So
James will write you some. Yes.
What do I
Sound better
think
than
Bruce
anything you
should
could
say
ever
at the end?
And then throw you a curveball to put you off.
Oh, dear.
That's how some roll.
Right, I'm going to pull it all together and say thank you for listening to The Novel Game. And you've been listening to Joey Holden, to Stuart Flynn, to Marion Pashley, and to Lewis McGilvray, who did the scores. My name is Bruce Guthrie. Thank you so much for listening. And we'll
Where's
see
that
you
G&T?
And we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you all.
You look great in this ball gown.
With the shoulder back on.
Oh,
there we go.
That was very good.
Lovely.
That was lovely, thank you.
That was fun.
Definitely pre-writing the answers moved it along.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
because you can actually then
Think and talk.
Yeah.
And actually pick apart that because
Yeah.
the guff on the back of those novels would put you right off.
Yeah. I'm going to have to make a quick, embarrassing exit.